All right, and just a final question. You're in Benghazi. That city is no longer in the control, from what we've seen, of Muammar al-Gaddafi's forces. What sort of preparations perhaps are going on there to sort of take this to the final level or final stage?
Well, we were able to have a city council to run the city, and this was like 2 days ago. That was a big success, and we beside the coalition of the 17th of February, and we are preparing for a military council with also joining with the ex-minister Mustafa Abdi. So we are doing our best to run the city, and we have passed the stage of having anarchy, of chaos. Things are going well here. Okay, we still have some issues to do, of course, because the revolution was escalated so quickly. But we are satisfied. We surprised ourselves, and we are satisfied. I mean, we're doing well.
All right, just to clarify for our viewers, Mustafa Jalil, who you referred to there, is the former Minister of Justice who has put together a rival administration. Dr. Hana Al-Galal from Benghazi, thanks for talking to us. We'll have more on Libya after this short break, plus the latest on unrest in other parts of the Arab world. We hear how a prominent leader of Yemen's most powerful tribe is joining the chorus of anti-government voices. And churchgoers in New Zealand forced to hold Sunday services outside as aftershocks threatened to flatten their place of worship.
Well, we're going to be seeing a lot of changes across Japan, the Korean Peninsula, as well as China over the next couple of days. Take a look at this, the forecast map for Sunday. Notice that Japan's not looking too bad. We're seeing Tokyo about 15 degrees. We're seeing Osaka about the same thing. But all of this massive clouds and rain over here across the Korean Peninsula, as well as China, is going to be moving in. Now, first of all, on Sunday, we're going to be seeing extreme amount of snow for the Korean Peninsula, anywhere from 300 to 400 millimeters of rain. Then as we go into Monday, then it all turns to rain. Most of Japan will be seeing some very heavy rain showers. Tokyo goes down to about 9 degrees, but very heavy rain showers all the way down to the south. Seoul will finally break out by the end of the day, but we'll still be seeing quite a bit of snow out here towards the west into parts of China. That is a good thing because of their drought situation that they're in right now. Down towards the southern part of China, still clouds in the forecast. Nothing is really going to change over the next couple of days. Actually, this is the next map. It looks identical to the one before. We're looking at temperatures of about 24 for Hong Kong, 23 for Hanoi, and 29 degrees, a little bit sunnier for Manila. Down towards Australia, though, that's where the big problems are going to be, especially up towards the north. Look at all this wet weather we have up towards the Northern Territory. Heavy flooding expected there, but the temperatures down to Adelaide finally start to cool off.
As geeks take on dictators, bloggers turn dissidents, and social networks root for social justice, governments are going cyber, spying on their citizens, erecting firewalls like iron curtains, and closing down websites. We ask, is cyber-generated change virtual or real? Empire at this time on Al Jazeera.
Well, you're watching Al Jazeera. Let's recap our top story now. The UN Security Council votes unanimously to adopt biting sanctions against Libya's government.
When atrocities are committed against innocents, the international community must speak with one voice. And today, it has.
Meanwhile, protesters have taken control of most of eastern Libya and are closing in on the capital, Tripoli. Tony Bertley reports from the eastern city of Benghazi.
More than 40 years of iron-fisted rule virtually over, and Libya's second city, Benghazi, is still celebrating. the old and the young taking to the streets to embrace a new era.
This is feeling I had never, ever been felt before.
It's liberation, but at a price. People here say that more than 750 were killed in the uprising, over 1,000 wounded. This is the coffin of 64-year-old Saad Zoué, a bus driver shot dead by Gaddafi loyalists, a simple man who wanted something many take for granted, freedom and democracy.
He was only a driver. He had nothing to do with Gaddafi.
His anger is shared by millions who are now finally able to speak out about the oppression and brutality of their leader.
All the people, they used to work with Gaddafi, they're out. We need them out. We need a new system.
To cheers and rapturous applause, a pre-Gaddafi Libyan flag was unrolled on a government building in the centre of Benghazi. Gaddafi may still be in power, but here they feel their suffering at his hands is almost over.
There is a tremendous sense of jubilation here, a tremendous sense of freedom and liberation. It's an electric atmosphere, you can feel it all around. But there is a small note of apprehension. Gaddafi's elite brigades and his mercenaries are about 400 kilometres from here. That's just over a 3-hour drive. And the Libyan leader is showing no signs of going just yet.
The uprising was aimed against the state apparatus. Police buildings were burned and the heavy weapons used as the arm of oppression have been turned into souvenir props.
Libya, Libya!
Above it all, they shout Libya, at peace with their beloved country, but at war with their leader. And all eyes are now on Tripoli. With most of eastern Libya in the hands of the opposition, the momentum is growing and forces are now building for an assault against the remaining Gaddafi strongholds. In Benghazi, they no longer say good morning, they say instead new beginning. For them, it has begun. For the capital and a few other towns, they'll have to wait for just a little while longer. Tony Bertley, AlJazeera, Benghazi, Libya.
Well, Libya isn't the only North African country facing unrest. These were the scenes in neighbouring Algeria, where riot police tried to prevent opposition parties from staging rallies in the capital. Protests in favour of greater freedoms have been gaining momentum. There have been calls for the country's longtime president, AbdelAziz Bouteflika, to step down. But its supporters also took to the streets in his defence. 3 people have been killed in the Tunisian capital during clashes with security forces. Soldiers used tear gas to disperse protesters who threw stones and burned tyres. A government official blames the unrest on supporters of ousted President Ben Ali. At least 12 people were injured and about 100 others arrested. Yemen's ruling party is brushing off the resignation of a leading tribal figure from the president's party. Hussein Abdullah Al-Ahmar leads a family which runs a financial empire with huge political influence. Well, the ruling party is putting on a brave face.
We are all tribes and he is a Yemeni citizen like all of us. We all take part in the process of trying to come up with a practical and comprehensive solution, whether through the tribes, citizens or parties. All parts of Yemeni society are trying to come up with a way out of the crisis.
A cabinet reshuffle by the King of Bahrain has done little to satisfy thousands of anti-government protesters. They gathered at Pearl Roundabout in the capital Manama, where protesters were killed earlier this month. Traffic was brought to a standstill as they marched along a major road. Police didn't intervene. In other news, Ireland's main opposition party is all set to form the next government. Prime Minister in waiting, Enda Kenny, has been kissing babies and insisting that economic stability is his first priority. Well, he says he'll try to renegotiate that $113 billion bailout which stopped Ireland from going bankrupt. The arrest of a war crime suspect in Bosnia is provoking protests in neighbouring Croatia. Thousands of people packed the main square in Zagreb, demanding the government protect war veterans. They're furious at last month's arrest of Tihomir Puda. He denies charges of war crimes during the Balkans War in the 1990s. The man in charge of American troops in Iraq and Afghanistan has been offering advice to his successors. Robert Gates says the days of major U.S. invasions should be over.
In my opinion, any future defense secretary who advises the president to again send a big American land army into Asia or into the Middle East or Africa should have his head examined. as General MacArthur so delicately put it.
Well, in New Zealand, the mayor of Christchurch says at least a third of all buildings must be demolished and rebuilt after Tuesday's earthquake. Officials also say serious questions need to be asked about why some of them collapsed. 145 people died in the quake and more than 200 are still missing. Survivors have been attending Sunday services at church. Our correspondent, Andrew Thomas, joined one congregation.
The cracks caused by the earthquake in the structure of this church are almost imperceptible, but they are there. And significantly, the church tower has moved a little distance away from the main body of it, which makes the whole structure unsound, certainly not safe enough to hold a church service inside, which is why this service is taking place al fresco in the grounds of the church. The vicar was telling me before it began that he's made sure the congregation is a safe distance back, just in case an after tremor comes and does bring the church down. In Christchurch city centre, of course, most of the churches lie in ruins, most famously the cathedral, where it's believed between 20 and 25 people lost their lives when the spire of that church collapsed into rubble. Very important, though, this Sunday that the community can still gather, can still share experiences, get together and relive and explain what's happened this week and try and find some kind of sense through that. This very much part of the healing process for this city, the opportunity to gather and to share.
Well, in the United States, a quiet cup of coffee turned into a drama at this cafe when a minivan came crashing through the front of the shop. The crash happened on morning when it was a quiet period at the coffee shop. No one was injured in the incident. The driver was a 42-year-old woman who claims the gas pedal was stuck. A rush for the caffeine. This is Al Jazeera, and these are the stories making the headlines now. The United Nations Security Council has voted unanimously for sanctions against Muammar al-Gaddafi and his inner circle. Well, they include travel bans, an assets freeze and an arms embargo. The US ambassador to the UN said the sanctions send a strong message.
When atrocities are committed against innocents, the international community must speak with one voice. And today, it has.
Libya's Deputy Ambassador to the UN thanked the Security Council for supporting the resolution. He described Gaddafi's government as fascist.
The Tripoli regime has no longer any credibility